I think like the biggest thing is establishing a routine, right? And don't rock the boat too much. I know that everyone thinks everyone has heard a guru say, post every day, 7 days a week in order to grow fast. But you want to play the long game. Like it doesn't serve you well to grow really fast and then burn out because you just did it too hard in the beginning. So instead, I would say focus on 3 posts a week, and kind of don't overthink the quality of those posts. The quality will come in time when you realize how everything works. But focus on being consistent with those posts. Like stick with the days you choose, stick with the times you choose. Every day, work on your posts for the next week a little bit.
So, hi guys, this is Eamon, and I'm back with another episode of Mindful Marketing. And today I have Simon with us, who is an expert in creating brand strategies for a lot of different people, including tech, sales, and marketing professionals. And today we have a very interesting topic to talk about, that is how to master the art of self marketing online. So, all over to you, Simon. Can you tell us about what is your personal journey as a person? Because we all are brands ourselves as well. So, what's your personal journey in creating your own brand?
Oh, yeah, so I used to work in marketing when I was fresh out of college with my bachelor's degree. And then I went for my master's degree in urban planning, so something completely different. Now I work for a tech company where I do urban planning for them. But as part of that, we help cities that we work with their brands. And I don't know, like I think it was like last summer or something. I watched this video on someone talking about the importance of having a personal brand, even if you're not an influencer or you're just like a regular working professional. And I thought, why not try it? So I didn't really plan it. I just figured let's make a post about something I know well, which is project management is something I do well. So I posted about it. I made like some LinkedIn carousel, took like a Canva template that looked pretty awful, put some text on there, and thought, here you go, like here's 10,000 followers. And sure enough, that didn't happen. I think I got like 20 likes on it, and half of those likes were from friends or coworkers. And I think that's a pretty normal story for most people starting out. But then I kept posting because the thing with me is once I start with something, I don't know, it becomes a routine and I just chip away at it and hope for the best, which is what I did. I tried out multiple different content formats. In the beginning, I thought I would do something more closely related to my actual current job, because I thought that's my niche. Turns out it wasn't. I tried a few other things. They resonated well with the audience, but it wasn't really me. And then I finally figured that I'm pretty good at personal branding, whether I realize it or not. Might as well talk about what I do to build my personal brand. So I started posting about that, found my niche, found a routine that works for me, and now I share content on that and help people build a brand around their personality that fits their personality, that helps them like advance in their career or find new opportunities, etc.
That's very nice. That's a very great journey. And I hope you get a lot of success in the future as well. So, how do you
Thank
maintain authenticity when it comes
you.
especially to LinkedIn? Because there's a lot of people online. So, how do you actually, stay true? And what strategies do you actually have?
Yeah, so like my strategy in the beginning was be really professional, sound like everyone else. The more you sound like a robot, the better. I even for a week in the beginning because a lot of times I saw a post and I wanted to sound professional, so I used AI to help me write comments, and they were awful. And then there was this one time where I commented on some creator's post, and he had like I think 5,000 followers or something at the time. I really liked his content, so I just made a genuine post, but I still wrote it in the same jargon. And he messaged me privately, and he was like, "Hey, like I really like your content. You seem like a nice person, but your comment sounds very much like an AI wrote it." And I was like, "Wait a second, I wrote it myself, and it still sounds like the AI helped me with it." So I was like, "Well, I think I just gotta be more of myself." I was always afraid in the beginning, oh, if I sound too much like myself, people won't take me seriously. I don't sound professional. But sure enough, once I started writing like I talk, my posts sounded more like me. People really resonated with that, and I realized, well, maybe there's something to being authentic, and being yourself. And of course, you're gonna rub some people the wrong way with the way you are, just because some people don't mesh with your personality. But you don't have to please everyone, as long as you please a few people and they enjoy your content. And that's kind of the mantra I've been working with ever since I use elements that I kind of stand behind in my personal life, right? Be it like my love for cats. So I always feature like my cat and my content, writing, like cracking jokes here and there. If I see a really silly post somewhere, those big influencers that I talk about, I don't know, the 10 most toxic bosses. Sometimes I can't resist and just leave a snarky comment. And sometimes they don't gain any traction. Sometimes they gain a lot of traction. But I think the thing I found most helpful with LinkedIn is just A, being yourself, and B, building with other people, building connections with other people, not for transactional reasons. Like, hey, I'm going to shoot this person at the end because want to sell him my course, but instead I'm going to shoot this person at the end just because I like their content and just want to chat with them and get to know them. And I think that approach has served me really well because I think on LinkedIn people are very apprehensive a lot of times engaging with people because they can smell the sales pitch from a mile away or they're afraid of it. Um, I think there's a boatload of examples of that. So every time someone realizes that you genuinely want to connect with them, and you genuinely are interested in their stuff and what they're doing, they build a relationship with you. And whether you realize it or not, you're building a brand because people associate certain traits with you, certain brand colors, certain content types, and I'm kind of like answering your question all over the place. But yeah, there's a lot of components that play into
That's
building a
right.
brand there.
So you talk a lot about, how to create human content. But there are a lot
Mhm.
of people on LinkedIn which claim that, using AI, you can create 5 posts for a whole week in just 1 hour. So do you think this approach is right, or is there a better way to use AI?
I think AI should be used to refine stuff, and I get the appeal. A lot of people like English isn't their first language, like with me, and you don't want to sound like a fool, like making mistakes in your posts, or maybe you don't even know what to write about in the beginning. But I think you relying on AI is like fool's gold because eventually your content will be just as generic as other people's content. You're not going to stick out, and especially starting out in the beginning, you need to stick out if you want to build a following. And if you just use the templates that everyone else is using, because let's be honest, if you use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever other program you want to use, like the answers will look very similar. Um, so I think you're shooting yourself in the foot using AI. What I would recommend is if you have an idea, like I don't know, use your notes app on your phone, speak into your phone, let it write down your ideas and kind of edit it. And after that, if you want to make sure that grammatically it sounds smooth, then you can put it into ChatGPT as like a final editor, if you will. But I wouldn't do it from the get-go because it just makes your ideas sound very generic and replaceable. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap. I think that ties back to, for me, the biggest misconception in the beginning was that you have to be professional and not be funny and not be yourself at all costs. Otherwise, you're not going to cut it on LinkedIn. And I think that might work for some people, that approach, but overall, most people, it doesn't disservice if they take that too literal and then use AI kind of as a crutch in order to make it on LinkedIn. And most people give up because they realize no one really engages with my content because it sounds like everyone else's comment. Um, and they give up. And you want to play the long game with LinkedIn. Success doesn't always happen overnight. So I think use AI as a help, but don't use it as a crutch.
That's right. So there's a lot of competition online, not only on LinkedIn, but Instagram and everywhere. Every other person is a creator. So because of
Mhm.
all of this competition, what challenges do you think all of these new creators are facing nowadays that wasn't there when you initially started with your personal branding journey?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is sticking out, and also, and I think that goes across every platform, right? Because most of the time, there's going to be someone else that had your idea,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to stick out. So you really have to just in the beginning crank out content, and it's going to be bad. You're going to look at it in like a few months and say, "What the hell was I doing? That looks terrible." But that's part of the journey. Like every week for me, even. I look at my posts and I look at the post from the week prior and I think, oh, this looks awful. Like I could have done so much better here. So it's an iterative process where you make continuous, like small incremental changes to your content and it gets better from time to time. So if you stick out and you see a challenge, and if you start out and you see a challenge in sticking out from the beginning because your content is just not seen by the people you want it to see, um, you just gotta stick with it, and see what works, what doesn't work, and kind of like hard, like kind of curate your content in a way where you kind of reiterate what worked well and you scrap what didn't work well, you know? And if you stay consistent with that approach, it might be really slow in the beginning, you know. The important thing is not to give up. Because I think a lot of people that think it's really easy to cut on LinkedIn or even Instagram or TikTok, you know, that they hear these stories of someone that made their first post and gained like 10,000 followers. And that's simply not the reality. Like even when I was starting on LinkedIn, I remember there was a lot of other creators that the algorithm kind of shows you that are in a similar niche as you. Um, and they start posting every day because they hear you have to post every day. Um, and then they eventually run out of steam because the likes aren't coming, the followers aren't coming. So you really have to tell yourself in the beginning that this is not going to be an easy journey. You have to put a lot of work and you have to be consistent with it. And once you do those things and you have content that's unique, good things will happen. But it does take time, and I think that's the biggest challenge that you don't see instant results immediately. Um, People need to keep that in mind.
That's right. So how important do you think are comments when it comes to, like, yesterday also your post was about this. So how important do you think
Yeah,
is it to comment on other people's posts rather than posting yourself 5 times a week?
yeah. I think comments are like a superpower on LinkedIn. Uh, I know everyone knows that to a degree, but they don't really know how to do it properly. A lot of people like there's one day where they spend 2 hours commenting on posts, and then the next day they don't do anything. Or a lot of people they comment and then 2 hours later they post their own post and don't really see any traction. There's a method to the madness, and it's almost like a game, and it can be a lot of fun if you do it right. So, an approach that works well for me is I I have 3 posts a week, and I'm at the same day at the same time every week. And before I post, I engage for 30 minutes, usually in the morning. And I have some creators I really like their content, so I have like a little. I get a notification when they post something. I turn that on, so I comment on their posts pretty early, try to make it thoughtful and unique, so it sticks out a little bit. And then I just scroll through my timeline and see posts that resonate with me. And I leave a comment that I think is unique, makes sense in the situation. It shouldn't be a comment like, love this post or great carousel. You know, it should be something more insightful.
Yeah.
Maybe even ask a question, you know, or give some additional tips without sounding like a smartass. And you do that every morning for 30 minutes. And like I said, if you have a post, even better, post that post right after you're done with those 30 minutes. And set an actual time on your phone. Like it sounds silly, but it does work because the timer holds you accountable that you actually stick with those 30 minutes. And then once the timer is over, you can go about your business and do other things. You know, if you have another job, you can work on that job. Um, and if you post, maybe come back after for like 20 minutes after the post and respond to comments there because comments are a great way to showcase expertise to people outside of your audience. That's kind of the plan behind that. And also show support to people, to other creators who really like, which helps with building that relationship I mentioned earlier, where you meet people you would have never met otherwise. And that's all thanks to comments. So comments are not just a tool to get likes on your post. They are also a tool to kind of get out there, increase your reach, build new relationships. And at the end of the day, LinkedIn should be a little bit of fun, where you enjoy going on there. You shouldn't dread going on there, and you shouldn't feel like, oh man, I'm gonna post for 30 minutes. What a slog, you know? It should be like, oh, cool. Like I'm gonna engage with some friends, you know, leave some comments. They're gonna leave some comments on my stuff. This is fun, you know. They might send me a DM and like ask me some follow-up questions. Comments is where all the fun stuff on LinkedIn happens, in my opinion. And posts are just kind of they're another part of it, but
Yeah.
think if you think of LinkedIn as a whole as a soup, then comments are like they're the seasoning, you know, that make like the rest taste good. That's the way I go about comments. So yeah, 30 minutes every morning. Um, no comments on the weekends because I gotta relax. And yeah, if I have a post, I comment for 30 minutes after I post it.
That's right. So what indicators for success in personal branding are is it for you? Like whether it's like or comments, or do you think that more amount of leads, connections for you? What is actually success in personal branding?
Yeah, I think like it really depends on what you want to do with your personal brand, right? If you're on LinkedIn because you want to sell your product, I think then leads is the important thing you want to get. So then you use your personal brand to create trust with potential leads, right? Like you write content that helps them with like a pain point they have. And hopefully that content is good enough and invokes enough trust where they put their money and their trust in your product in order to gain a certain result, right? So you should make content that's aligned with your product. Some people just want to become influencers on LinkedIn, so their biggest like success indicator is reach, followers, right? And there are certain post types that do well with a lot of people on LinkedIn, and if you want to go focus on those post types, and specifically what I mean is posts, and a lot of people hate LinkedIn for that, but the kind of posts where you talk about 10 signs of a great leader, or 10 signs your workplace is toxic, or 10 reasons why you shouldn't hire the most qualified candidate on paper. You know those posts, right? Like you see them every day from a different creator. Those posts work well because they resonate with people that usually don't spend time on it. Average employee, and he has like a coffee break and he goes on his phone. He doesn't go on TikTok because TikTok is too loud, or Instagram. But LinkedIn, you can just scroll on your phone and then you see a post like 10 reasons your boss is a lunatic, and then that person's like, great, yeah, it's just like my boss, let me like
Yeah,
this. And there's a lot of people on there, and if you want to just increase your brand, like your reach, and use your brand like that, that's one way to go about it. But I think most people that do it smart on LinkedIn, they want to increase leads or build a community. And that's when you showcase your personality, you showcase that you're someone that they can trust, and that way you increase the trust in your product as well. And your
that's
personal brand basically serves as a trust vehicle.
That's right. So, what message do you have for those people who are starting off right now? Because there's a lot of competition, a lot of creators out there. So, a lot of people get overwhelmed. Even I got overwhelmed when I was starting.
Mm,
So, what opinion do you have, or what message do you have for all of those new creators, and how can they actually avoid getting brain drained? Because every other day you have to think about new
yeah.
content that's different from others. So, how do you cope with that?
I think like the biggest thing is establishing a routine, right? And don't rock the boat too much. I know that everyone thinks everyone has heard a guru say, post every day, 7 days a week in order to grow fast. But you want to play the long game. Like it doesn't serve you well to grow really fast and then burn out because you just did it too hard in the beginning. So instead, I would say focus on 3 posts a week, um, and kind of don't overthink the quality of those posts. The quality will come in time when you realize how everything works. But focus on being consistent with those posts. Like stick with the days you choose, stick with the times you choose, and every day work on your posts for the next week a little bit because you want to plan your content. You don't want to just create a post and then post it instantly. Like I always plan my content a week ahead. So I have something I don't have to think on the spot because I have pressure to post it on that given day. And that way you don't miss out on posts. And then I would also build a habit of commenting every day and diversify the people whose posts you comment on. Use some really big creators, use some medium-sized creators, use some really small creators that are starting out with you because that's how you build relationships. Those people look for other people to support their stuff. So support their stuff and they will support your stuff. And that way you will get comments, you will get likes on your post eventually. Your posts will get a lot better. The most important thing besides consistency is just to trust the process. Like if you stick with it for 2 years and you want to build a following, you will have 10,000 followers if you stick with this plan. But you can't expect instant results. Sure, it happens to a lot of people, like if one post and it completely goes viral and their followers increase. But conversely, people that go viral really early on, they they really lose steam because they can't replicate the success because they don't fully understand why something went. And then eventually they throw in the towel and they blame it on LinkedIn or they blame it on whatever other platform they tried where it didn't work. So yeah, being consistent with your posting schedule, commenting every day, 5 days a week, and trusting the process and not giving up after 4 months when you only have 1,000 followers. I think those are the things I would suggest. And maybe as like a little bonus thing, don't like it's good to listen to people that have done it on LinkedIn, but don't take every word they say for granted. Like it's your own journey. Like everyone's like journey is a little different. What works for you might not work for others. So if someone tells you don't be yourself, sound professional, that works well for some people, that might not work for you. And if it doesn't work well for you and it doesn't feel right for you, then don't do it. Be yourself. I remember like when I started, I I commented on all these people that posted on productivity, and I didn't even like those people. And I was like, what am I doing? This is not me. So I pivoted, and that's just part of the journey that you notice what works for you, what doesn't work, what you like, what doesn't, what you don't like. and being conscious of that. So if you follow those tips, I think like it's sustainable posting on LinkedIn, and the success will come in it eventually.
That's right. That's some great advice, actually. So a lot of people online, like all of us, we are either creators on LinkedIn or Instagram. We either have one account that is always public where we are posting.
Mhm.
So what do you think is that one misconception that people have that you want to get rid of when it comes to personal branding? One myth you already told, that is, not publishing every day, which people actually say that
Yeah.
you publish 7 times a day. But what other misconceptions
Mhm.
do you think that people have?
Yeah, like I was talking about earlier, like that you have to really be professional at all times. Like, and of course, there's a line to be walked. Like, you can't like just curse on LinkedIn or something. But I think letting your personality shine through is fine, um, because it does build trust in you. Let me think what another big misconception is. That's my biggest pet peeve, honestly, what I just mentioned. So I think that's the biggest misconception I would go with. That you need to be professional because LinkedIn is a professional social network, but of course there's layers to it. And yeah, I think that's what I go with.
Yeah, that's right. I understand that. So a lot of founders, out there, they usually are not active on LinkedIn. A lot of CEOs
Mhm.
are not active on LinkedIn. So what advice do you have for them? How can they actually create a balance between, being professional as well, because they have to be professional because they're founders,
Yeah,
but at the
right.
same time, creating a digital space where everyone is comfortable. So what advice do you have for them, especially?
Yeah, I think for founders, like they're strapped for time, so it's a little different. But if you're efficient with your time, you can still build in a schedule where you work on a content piece for 30 minutes in the morning and comment for 30 minutes in the morning. And the comments, the posts can just be like a graphic, and then some things you notice maybe in a week, and maybe you just post 2 times a week. But maybe keep the messaging light. Don't have like your PR person right before you. Write them in a way that you would write them, right? And I'm not saying like you need to crack jokes, but there's a number of brands out there that are funny and a little witty without being unprofessional. And people really like that because you see so many CEOs and they use hashtags and numbers, and no one likes that stuff because no one really cares at the end of the day. So if you can let your personality shine through a little bit, where you're the face of your brand if you're a founder or like if you're a company. So you want to have people associate a certain emotion with your product, and you're the head of the or like the face of the product. So they need to build a relationship to you. They need to build like they need to have a certain emotion that's evoked whenever they see a post from you. So sharing personal anecdotes is, I think, really good. Stuff from your personal life where you're more than a founder. You're also maybe your dad. Maybe you have a really cool hobby that you want to share. Posting about those kind of things, and ideally tying them back to how they impact your product and why your product is great. So I think even for founders that want to be professional, it's still good to show personality because it makes people interested in you, you know, unless you're a client of that company and you see corporate posts, then you might be interested in those. But the average Joe will not care what CEO X has to say about their company, So share personal stories, be relatable, and good things will happen.
That's right. So can you walk us through the process about creating content? How do you actually get, the idea, then create content, finally design it and turn it into a carousel, and then, reply to the comments? Can you walk us through that whole process? Because
Yeah,
your posts,
sure.
they do have a lot of reach and engagement. So can you
Mhm.
just give us a whole, idea about it?
Yeah, sure. I can kind of give you a breakdown of what I do on a week-to-week basis. So I have a notes app on my phone, and every time I have an idea while I'm driving or I'm going for a walk or making food, I just say yes. I either write down the idea just like a thought on my phone, or if I have like an idea that's a little bit more expressed already, I'm gonna write it down with my voice feature on my phone. And then on a given day, I usually wake up, I train jiu-jitsu, and then come sit in my car, do comments on the phone for 30 minutes. And then I get home, I shower, and then I work on content for every morning. So I usually try to have almost content for the next week prepared by Wednesday. And usually I spend an hour, like I said, an hour per day. I use Canva for most of my code because I do like creating carousels a lot. Um, I create those. I kind of find designs I like. Or like I usually pick a theme for every carousel, um, and I build that, fine tune it a little bit, and then I the ideas that I mentioned earlier from the Notes app, I kind of put them in a Word document, write them out, make them sound good, where it's a good first draft. And then when I'm happy with the first draft, even though it's not super polished, that's when I put it into ChatGPT. And I built like a project for me with like a ton of prompts in there. How I wanted to sound and everything. And I basically just give it the order, make the sound more smooth, so it's smooth. It takes out a few redundant words, adjust the grammar if it's not perfect. I can use that to write my carousel content in there, and also to have it as like a text post that's attached to the carousel. Once I'm done with it, I put it in my content calendar planner and also in my LinkedIn schedule. So I schedule the post usually for a day. Say if I want to post it at 8 in the morning on a Wednesday, I'm going to schedule it for 5 p.m. So I don't accidentally post it. Like the post doesn't just fire off because it's scheduled. Um, because I have it set for the afternoon. So instead, I can manually post it when it's time to post for me on that Wednesday. And I do that. So I comment right 30 minutes before I post. And then I post. I click post on the scheduled post. And then I usually drive home. And when I get home, I respond to all the comments on the post. And I try to really respond to comments in general because I get always a little peeved off if I respond. If I write like a really well thought out comment on like an account and maybe they get 50 comments, so it's not that many to respond to, and they don't take the time to respond to comments, right? So I don't want to do the same thing. So I try to respond to every comment. Of course, here and there you get some AI generated like comments, which is fine. If I like the idea, I'm still gonna respond to it, like with like some thought provoking response, hopefully. So yeah, that's kind of my process. And any leftover time I have in a given week, I might try to get a head start on content for the week after that. Or if I'm working on something else, like I have like a one-on-one call with someone, I schedule it for later in the week as well. Um, I'll work on like an off frame that I'm working on. So that's kind of like how I go about it week to week.
Okay, that's great. So a lot of people on LinkedIn, they have this conflict. Even I have this conflict because many of us are already working somewhere.
Yeah.
So how much is it important to actually share your work, that you're doing for a company versus your personal brand? And which one do you think
hmm
is more important?
hmm so I mentioned it earlier, but I did in the beginning wanted to make posts about my actual job, and it really depends. I found that from what I do, which is it's called implementations, so I set up software for cities. It's very niche, and for the most part, we work with government employees. So I work with city employees, and those people don't go on LinkedIn, and they don't really have an interest in building a personal brand because they are employed by the government. So they are fully focused on that. So then I was like, well, it doesn't make really that much sense to post about that because that niche is just not great. Let me find something else. So I thought I use a lot of AI. Let me write about AI like everyone else. And that was very replaceable, very boring, very generic. So I stopped with that. And I did a few posts about email marketing because I used to do that. So I thought I would post about that. And I did, and I got really bored with it. It gained decent traction, but it wasn't really me. And then I just had this epiphany that I'm this entire time doing branding without realizing it. Let me just post about that, about my journey, what I do, what tips I have, what has worked for me, what hasn't worked for me. People really resonated with that. So I think there's a balance we want. If you have a job that has a really big audience, for instance, if you're a product manager, there's a ton of product managers on LinkedIn, and there's a ton of different mythologies you can like share, like different approaches, and that resonates really well. And I think I would encourage people, if you are in a niche like that, to follow that niche and post about that niche because it's very specific and it makes your content stick out more. Um, but of course, if you have a job where like something more generic, maybe you work in sales. No offense to salespeople, but a lot of people do sales, so maybe don't post about that. Maybe post about something that you're passionate about. I think at the end of the day, if you're passionate about your job, you will find something to post about that job, unless the niche is very specific. If you're not fully passionate about your job, or maybe you're on LinkedIn and you're creating content because you want to get rid of, or like you want to quit that job and be a creator full time, then maybe embrace something that you're actually really interested in yourself. And your content will be more authentic and better for it. So that's the advice I would give. If you have a cool niche, make content about it. If not, find something you're passionate about.
That's great advice. So this brings us at the end of my podcast episode. So
Hmm.
at the end, will you like to give any message out, especially to the new creators out there who are, starting?
Yeah, I think what I would always tell someone starting out is like, don't expect the world in the beginning. Good things take time.
Yeah,
Just be consistent. Work on your craft. Realize that like your post might sound really bad right now. It might look really bad, but that's not going to be forever. You're going to learn and just be consistent with it. Play the long game. Focus on sustainable success. You want to do this for maybe ideally decades, you know? You don't want to do it just for a year. If you don't grow to 10,000 followers in a year and you only have, I don't know, 3,000 followers after 6 months, don't give up. Just keep posting. You know, you're going to get better. Your content will get better. You just got to chip away at it, you know? It's like that. There's this, I don't know if you've seen this, is a little bit off topic, but there's this little meme of like a guy and he's like getting like away at a tunnel looking for diamonds and he's almost there, but then he turns around, even though the diamonds were like this close to him. You know, that might be you on LinkedIn if you're starting out. Like maybe you're just like one really cool post away from going viral and getting 5,000 followers out of nowhere, you
yeah.
know? So just chip away and good things will happen. Like just, yeah, follow what you're passionate about and don't give up.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Simon. It was wonderful having
Thank you,
you.
Ivan.
Learned a lot about
Yes.
personal branding as well.